Water is our lifeblood. It keeps us alive, it keeps us healthy, and we use it for everything. It cleans us on the outside, you know, as well as the inside.
Here, the natural world still comes first. You know, we still have these great trees, we have clean water, we have wildness, we have wild animals, we have salmon still running.
What we have here is one of the most intact old-growth forest ecosystems left. It's like an island of green.
All of that, to me, makes a beautiful landscape and the kind of place I just love to be. I think a lot of the value of just being human is in sharing. Ann and I get to share all of this intimately together, and then we pretty much spend most of our lives in efforts to share it with others. We want to save what we really have here for the generations to come so that they can know the kind of wonderful quality of life that we have here today. We need to protect the natural areas that remain here so that we're ready for these pressures of change when they come in the future. There are enough of them now, there'll be more in the future, and a land trust is set up to do just that job, to protect the very best natural areas that are left.
These rivers are just really special, and if they were to go away, it would be a shame. My business would suffer, the quality of life for the residents here would suffer, and so we really want it to stay the way it is now or get better. The Land Trust is helping secure the quality of life that we have here.
Wild Rivers Land Trust is working to make it work better for us, not just for wildlife, not just for wild areas. It's lined up to work with us too. It's a win-win deal.
This place is incredibly valuable in today's world. There are very few places like this left across our country and the world. The care of it is our responsibility. What happens to it now will affect it and people for the rest of time.
"70 years after the clear cut, the keystone, a promise. The story of a forest can begin anywhere. With the toothwort's first flower in February, with tectonic plates slamming against the Oregon coast 400 million years ago, with a bear peeling bark from a cedar, licking the sapwood, tasting the forest's sugar, with a springboard notch cut in 1950, still visible today in the stump of a 400-year-old fir, or with a promise to create a wildlife corridor from Cape Blanco to the Siskiyous and make the forest whole again. Here, where an old logging road crumbles and slides off the hillside into the Elk River, a sign nailed to a tree tells us this forest is protected by the Wild Rivers Land Trust. Love for a place begins with your body, the silk of willow leaves, the golden flash of a kinglet's crown, the pileated woodpecker's drum. Walk quietly and learn from this second growth forest what it means to be whole. The old forest logged and burned and left to heal itself. The new forest growing out of the old.
Let beauty. The lone pair of bluebirds got an early start this year. I sing a small triumph for 4 fledglings in the nest. My voice crawls a ladder of wind to the dark-haired boy running through the yarrow. I saw him yesterday, drawing teasel, a weed crowding what belongs. His teacher smiling over his shoulder. Let's let beauty live a little longer.
This is Alexandra Teague reading The Uncultivated Sonnets, Rose Creek Nature Preserve, Washington. Prairie. For which the speech of England has no name, for which the cow parsnip also calls in silence, for which wind tangles between the hawthorn's lichened gold like ribbons in a child's hair, in which the ribs of a deer are a shipwreck, Neptunia prata, the grassland of water, water leaf with its broad, bright leaves submerging earth that was snowdrift in green, surging spring into the crooked quiet. Flit of red-flecked, red-winged blackbird wing, ripple and rumple of prairie, for which the speech of cultivation has no name but plow, for which the harrowing and straight line make a flag of a field of a scatter of wild-streaked iris, purple and white dapple, catchfly and fescue bunching as the creek crinkles by in the sprung spring sunlight, for which the speech can only say grosbeak and warbler and chokecherry, borrowing wings and soft mists of blooms with their still gold eyes, for what keeps drawing new beauties like doodles on paper ripped from a notebook then caught in an updraft, till the shaggy spirals unravel, the way every teacher of every ruler gridded chalkboard's small green field fears, and the way birds dream of for nest fluff, for which there is new need each spring as the dogwood stalk their flamy stalks of red, inextinguishable fires along the creek bed, winter, like the hawthorn thicket, cut back just enough for me to pass in the first March sun as the prairie re-prairies itself into the garden it was before anyone planted it, into the lung-filling word of itself.
My name is Craig Utter, and I'm the Executive Director of the Payette Land Trust. Valley County is an incredibly magical place. I think what really makes me care about this job is the fact that I have an opportunity to work within a community that is growing and looking for balance and trying to find ways to not only see a mountain community grow, but conserve the whole reason why everybody wants to be here. I think from a land use standpoint, the goal from the Payette Land Trust is to find the balance between development and conservation. We look at agricultural corridors, the use that exists right now, how can we conserve that? Because we've got a homeostasis, so to speak, within the valley that is starting to be disrupted with the movement of folks across the country to places like Idaho. We're going to have to move at a pace that meets the growing expansion of Idaho and of Boise and of the valley, which means more and more organizations are going to have to come together to work collectively towards the same goal. So there are multiple opportunities for folks to help out the Land Trust. And it may be as simple as just donating funding to the Land Trust. Currently, we have more requests for conservation than we have capacity to handle. And we're looking to increase our staff, but before we can do that, we have to have the funding.
Do it. It just protects our properties. It protects our open space, protects our valley.
Hi, this is C. Marie Furman. I'm reading These Flowers, This River, Perhaps I Could Stay. Hettinger Ranch, July 2021. These wildflowers are a celebration of water to soil and leaf to light, and this year they are heavy on green stems. In the evening light they are twice their midday brightness. A bee lands and dusts her legs in gold. These flowers are women lazing on back porches of houses where good work has been done, meals served, the kitchen sink clean, the towel drying on an oven door. They are children smiling at what they don't yet have names for, stars, birdsong, the rabbits sideways hop into tall grass. They are scarves of red and blue, yellow and white, hanging from fence posts and clotheslines. Were I to have more than oneself, I would leave her at this river. I would gather my skirts around my knees, leave my sandals on the shore, and sit on the lichen-covered rock that graces its bank. The water is not deep here. The stones on the bottom are smooth with time, smooth with current, and an epic of seasons that have washed over and rolled them. Bare feet can find footing on and between them. Erosion, too, can be a kindness. And where moss grows, my soles find another softness. I would lie my body back, as I have so many streams before, and let the water have its way with my hair. Perhaps I could stay until the season smooths me. Thank you.
At the Potter Ranch, Ridgway, Colorado. On a day when the human world feels like a fist, when it clenches and squeezes, fierce and relentless, I leave the four walls and sit on an old fallen cottonwood tree, long and silver and smooth. There, in the center of a wide river valley, I sit and sit and sit. And the tall green grasses and the graceful white yarrow don't refuse me. And the murmur of waves and the musk yellow scent of sweet clover replace any thoughts save being here. The ring of red mesas with their vast crowns of spruce form a vase great enough to hold it all, and I'm gathered into spaciousness. Along with the dark green sedges and white butterflies, with the tantrums of brambles and the tangled flight patterns of thousands on thousands of dark tiny flies. A flock of birds rise all at once from the river, and my heart and my eyes rise too. A long time passes before I am quiet enough to hear the chorus in the willows, the bright clicking of insect wings, the silence that weaves through everything. And then the flickers come close, and the dragonflies draw nearer in, and I current, I cloud, I leaf, I wing, I leave unwalled, unselved, The spaciousness comes with me.
Danny Rosen writes for Three Sisters Park, Colorado West Land Trust. In the Dying Dog Desert by Danny Rosen. Stooped, hobbling, foaming at the snout, and with a tumorous eye. High noon with the smoke, when a tsunami of quiet rolls over what nectar may be hidden within a brittle leaf, in a thin crevice, in the belly of the heart, in the core of our Precambrian solid and still. Movement is the stuff of humans, heading up single tracks in the salt wash, walking on white crust, on green mud, through a gap in the Dakota sand, beaches frozen and frozen again, down into the Morrison, slanting into the Cretaceous Sea. I imagine a festival of dinosaurs, gathered by the river, working together to stop all the killing, extolling the virtues of warmer blood, quaffing designer suds, debating the odds of bigger floods.
Wendell Berry said that if you don't know where you are, you don't know who you are. I come to you from the foot, from the base, from the sands of a tabletop mountain, known to some as Mesa Grande, to others as the Grand Mesa, to others as the gate to the Rockies, and to the ancient ones as Thunder Mountain or Land of the Spirits, long departed. It is said that wisdom lies in places. This red rock world was once an ancient seaway, has been known by Allosaurus, Hopi, Ute, lion, hummingbird, hawk, is shaped by column, terrace, butte, bluff, and blaze, is formed by the Rhone Plateau, globe mallow, lava flow, juniper, and sandstone. This place is also marked by human greed and cruelty, by broken creed and tragedy, by western wind and sprinklings of recovery. Today, this valley is known as the place where the peach and the grape will grow, is known as the confluence where the Gunny and Colorado rivers join and have fallen low. We gather here together in this place, in this life, in this world, to endure, as William Blake said, the beams of love, to deepen our knowing of currency and cultivation, of language and of cessation, of story and of invocation, and of time with its vanishings and traces and its wisdom, which is said lies in places.
Driggs by Ben Bentley. Who speaks to the monsoons within you? Remember that smell after a downpour on the dobies, and a killdeer flushes before the flies find you in the air as a twilight noon? What do you, Driggs? What is it you remember? Could you tell me who put thimbleberries below Thimble Rock? Or who thumped through the stallweg to build a home? It is no coincidence when star, silk, and moonlights align, so tell me, Driggs, do tell. If I squint, I remember a canyon with two mouths, one head, and a hand full of cactus. If I asked you, in the tongues of Unaweep, what language do you speak, Tabeosh? Would you tell me, West Sloper, where the sun lives? Would you eat wet roots along the Yampa? Would you watch the turbid streams slacken into a ruddy uncompagre, then settle down into the blue-green earth? Sawatch, sawatch, sawachi. For do we weep? For Hoven weep? Or have you forgotten that deserted valley? And where are the people now? No, chi. And where is their water? Water. You are enough. You are never ever wasted. Breeze up my knees and blossom water, or wash to sea, no matter. You are water. We are water. You are water. Will there come a time when we weep and yell and weep, and the ditch riders of our hearts come to dredge our tear ducts dry? There are no trout on this jury, no sleek salmon to say, don't muddy the water with your prior appropriations, man. My tears are salty, and you have no jurisdiction here. Three. Stray shafts of sunlight, rough ashlar, mortar, and stone. Watch it, and surely, when you look through the arch, there will be a fawn in the apricot. Surrender to it. Let the fawn's light lick you. Then tell me if you also would not live here. I've never known two firs to be foes. Never seen a willow sell its shadow to the ground. Elm offers crow her branches without gold, but what about you, human? An apple is enough, more than enough, an apple and the scent of chamomile. But you, what about you, human? I know the hoof prints of goats, the colors of bustards' bellies. I know what the moon means in the deserts, dreaming. I know death in the halms of pleasure and berries in the mouth's embrace. When the starlings arrive, when the partridges chatter, where the rhubarb grows, when the falcons falter. These I know, this I know, the sound of a quail's flutter. But you, human, what about you? Whose home is home if houses do not last? Or is home in the coming home, in the fawn light of early dawn, when a meadow's meadowlark hearkens the day, or the coal train hums bluely below mesa? Is it the first gold leaves, or the last gold leaves of the long-leafed lancing willow, or the pink of your cheek and the brown of your hand, relishing the scent of fresh, cool pasture? To return and know, my neighbor cut her sweet clover. Well, Driggs, where should I live? Where shall I build my buggy and tear it down again? I must learn, like the hermit of the hemlocks. I am no desert daisy, can garden my own garden, but can't say much on your petunias. That stood tall in the tall of a dark forest, listening to the sway of silence. Listening, Driggs, listening, as sandstone tumbles into sunset.
Hi, I'm Erin Schneider. I'm a poet with Writing with the Land Project, and I'm here with the Sardison Preserve, stewarded by the Driftless Land Conservancy. And I'm here to share a poem that I wrote with this place, called Outcrops. 1. Out of bedrock, I catch a glimpse of its spirit flit and light up the sandstone. Points of minerals scintillate under a soapstone sky. Out of sediment, I admire the heft that only water on rock can interpret. Its body taking shape flows in the veins of a century-old oak root. It treads light, not yet hardened. So begins the outcrops of a creative life. 2. And now you are of the ground traversing, boulder fields where maples and masonry anchor eternity. Somewhere, a cave, where isotopes reveal the jut of your rocky existence. I try to make sense of this russet decay. 3. I bent skyways, diving in with the intimacy of eroding stardust, so others may climb, perch, and dance, play with point of view, see the scene by scene, and surface amongst deposits of change. 4. Now, tilted in prayer, humbled by the river, its ooze and outwash outstretched like alms, circle in unspooled sediments of a remnant sea. I enter its cool body, deposit prayers in passing to the unidentified skulls and femurs scattered along the trail. I feel their last frost-filled breaths. Imagine a bridge for bones to merge with the stratum of the stream. With no tide to rest such weary words, I pray for life's continuity. Give me a sign, a vein to interpret the weathering of it all. A fish jumps, catches a water boatman under a mackerel sky. It's a good day to sail. I pray for an animal way of death. 5. And holy hot damn, the river is suddenly something different. She wears its rivulets of wet satin, awash in the intimacy of the eternal. Her veins change to feed roots, polish rocks, carve caves, move arrowheads, keep vigil for the boneyards of trees caught unaware. Oh, how she loves the splash and release, the making of curves, the bending of boulders, the warmth of being captured in moss. She hears the whisper of leaves, float their secrets to the sea. She deciphers the calls of nuthatches, reflects on the reed of the sky. This precious light, the bricks of sun, enoughness. She could answer all the eddies in the backwaters, miss the beaver's companionship. Damn, how it could house strangers, bring life to the party. She would need to go underground and perch before springs, surface at the base of bluffs, always the bluffs, for a point of view and a chance to risk exposure. All things I wish to be. Bless this power to move with earth.
They say the sound was like a fusillade of rifle shots, cold steel wrenching its way through a tensioned mesh of ancient roots. Pop, 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 the funereal salute of a vast community in honor of its own passing. Tracking their sullen oxen, the sodbusters would etch, line by line, a new narrative across the land, a saga of entitlement and triumph, a promise of liberty and measureless bounty. They had their reasons, though, for passing by this particular place. Too steep, too rocky, too near more compliant terrain, too small to suffer over. So as centuries turned, this humble swatch endured, inviolable, inconspicuous. The last shall be first, prophesied the Sodbusters' Bible. And today this remnant of lost prairie is an object of reverence, a mainstay for those seeking to redress the heedlessness of the past. Detached as a nude in an artist's studio, it offers itself up to scrutiny, the model and the measurement of the thing itself. A successor is already growing. Soon it will engulf this and other stubborn ancestors in a landscape flourishing and profuse, expansive, breathtaking, yet as imaginary as any adorning a gallery wall. For the genius of the prairie remnant will be proven not by the seed it has laid upon the soil or scattered to the wind, but by that it has sown among the fertile workings of the human mind.
The Scarborough Land Trust has been protecting the natural and agricultural lands in Scarborough for the past 46 years. We know how important these spaces are to the people of Maine. Currently, we protect over 1,500 acres, including a working farm and 8 preserves. Each year, our active volunteer program helps manage these properties for the benefit of people and wildlife. Our education programs get kids and adults out on the land, connecting them to our heritage, ecology, and future. Join us in this effort.
After hiking, it makes me feel much better. Also helps me understand why we need to protect wildlife.
I love Pleasant Hill Preserve.
May 8th, opening day, Broadturn Farm. And then they arrive, tulips and ranunculus, trout lily and Canada mayflower, bustle and din side by side. All of us more alive, weighted down with bumblebees. Our voices are more gurgle than roar, a fuzzy green unfurling. Seeds planted into warm mud, robin hopping on the path. So much beginning.
This is Claire Milliken, and I'm reading now my third poem from Blue Point Preserve. I'm not at Blue Point Preserve. I'm in my house in Elshead. But this third poem is actually from the first day of September. So it's sort of a summer poem masquerading as a fall poem, something like that. The title of the poem is Salt Marsh Elegy. Salt Marsh Elegy. And why don't I read the poem? Salt Marsh Elegy. I've been looking for a place to hold my homelessness. Not a bed or a door with a lock. I own those now, but a place that answers. Blue light across flat, braiding water. Then sun opens a door along salt hay. Eelgrass, cordgrass, paper delicate, wind flaking the light between blades. Grass is of subtle nouns, of no country or everywhere. Sunlight tips a sailboat's edge toward another shore, white flag of acquiescence. Man's days are like the grass the wind passes over. No ibis, just insects, call and response. They live here. I've been looking for a place to hold my homelessness, not lie about it, not undo it, just hold it. The whole sky sets a Sunday kind of light, though it's not Sunday. The sound of insects and emptiness, like everyone's done with prayers and slower. I've been looking for a room that's not human, sky of exile blue deeper than the soul, which is only a conjurer's trick, being made of words. Ocean caught sky tarping to horizon line, lost from the table of origins. Insects call and respond, quick, bright syllables. Prayers refined to scars. A new wind arrives, Pentecostal, tugging at worn-out shoregrass. There's no vanishing point, but an entire vanishing horizon. Fold where land, water, sky flow into the same line, and I know it's drowning. Salt marsh, sinking into rising sea waters. But clouds grow luminous, as if Aunt Lou's farmhouse stood still down south before the barrier islands, that house that burned down decades back from faulty wiring. Celestial wires tie the sky to water. One willet rises, disappears. New houses going up the eastern shore. A man comes down the path. I don't know him. We cast our human shadows, lures, ephemera into your shallows. A quickening breeze I feel in my pocket for car keys.
Daucus carota. At Pleasant Hill Preserve, under the Emerson elm, the Queen Anne's lace performs a dainty dance to the muted music of a slow summer breeze. The flower's name, a fairy tale. Queen Anne, a fine tatter, one day pricked herself, and a drop of her blood plopped upon her lace, leaving a purpled floret in the center of a flower. Fiction at its finest, for Queen Anne's lace is actually a workhorse, a commoner called wild carrot. She's a host plant for the black swallowtail butterfly and a variety of aphids. Her prodigious seeds feed the ring-necked pheasant and pine mouse. Roaming rabbits and white-tailed deer stop by to enjoy a few nibbles of her fresh flower and fern. Her fluffy foliage provides the preferred building material for nesting starlings. And now, in my America, I suspect, I fear, our sisters, our daughters, will harvest the maiden's lace, as women have done in the uncivilized before times, from India to Appalachia, as an abortifacient. Taken the morning after, the queen's seeds chewed or crushed into a tea or slurry, swallowed with greater doses of desperation and prayer. The real-life maidens wait for the purplish droplet to come, for her womb to imitate the flower, for whom, without patriarchal control, as the seeds ripen, the blossom curls inward to form a tight nest shape, turns a brownish color in an act of self-preservation, of self-protection, of survival.
Hello, I'm Margaret Gibson, and I had the pleasure and privilege of walking the wood parcel, which is part of the Great Meadows Conservation Trust in Glastonbury. It's also near Old Weathersfield in Connecticut. Just to let you know, it is an alluvial ecosystem, and the Connecticut River is nearby. And so what we have here is an alluvial forest along alluvial land that has been taken now for many other purposes, as you'll hear. The poem is in 15 parts. Some of them are only one line or a phrase. And I don't usually like poems with numbers in it, but I want you to think of the numbers here as not a countdown, since they go from 1 to 15, but a kind of count up, a kind of sense of time passing, because that is an awful lot about what the poem has to say. The poem is called Meditation on a Floodplain Meadow, Lit and Shadowed by Sun and Cloud. 1. Time is a floodplain, a bone, a seed. 2. If I'm still enough, in time present I may sense time past and time future. Skyow! Yelps the green-backed heron as it lifts from a limb of the bitternut hickory, and I translate the heron's monosyllable, now. 3. Now also the sound of a tractor in the corn harvest. Now the crunch of my boot soles on patchy gravel and dirt trail that weaves past a slump of earth where a house once in the 18th century was, before it was raised to make way for a highway. This whoosh on the edge of stillness. 4. Just breathe. 5. Whoever named it Fearful Swamp was not a Wangunk. They wove cattail mats, ate shoots and roots, fished the deep river, brook, and cove. They transformed plants into medicine. 6. Time is the tractor that uncovers their bones while planting seed corn early summer. 7. The photograph of an old iconic American elm in nearby Old Weathersfield shows it to be 15 feet in diameter. Now, as the ash trees die off, we plant American elms, disease-resistant. 8. Time is a cornfield, a green pond, a bench with a vista, sedge-grass and meadow swamp, bands of pale brown and yellow and dusky green that whisper, September. 9. September. After a summer's hard drought kept all hands filling 5-gallon plastic jugs to water the new bare root plantings of tupelo, hackberry, tulip poplar, bringing back the indigenous. 10. Time is an emerald ash borer. 11. In time past, Beaver Brook, considered by some settlers inconvenient, was redirected. It was common once, this draining of the floodplains for cornfields, turf farms, suburbs, highways. Where exactly is the remnant floodplain, swamp, and forest now? 12. If with your whole body in sunlight and shadow you read the land, you may sense a covenant that links sycamore, migrant oriole, corn farmer, native pharmacist, alluvial silts, arrowroot, and black willow into one flooding of water, wind, sunlight, earth. Why would you want to alter that covenant? 13. Last year's planting of young elms unfurls its leaves in time future, making the present moment steeper, greener. But you must not ignore the doe mangled along the concrete traffic barrier, center lane, Route 3. 14. Time present, time past, and time future abide in time present beneath this canopy of towering sycamore, burgeoning elm, swamp maple, ash. 15. Time is a floodplain, a bone, a seed. And as you hear, we end where we began, in the great circle and web of the natural world.
in the heart of Mather Meadows. Four corners of history resolve in this tapestry, where grapevines run wild and maple trees glow crimson in the fall. A crumbling wall holds in its stones secrets we'll never know. Bees sift pollen across from the homestead, humming past lies and deeds to the pulse of the earth, spinning on its axis, connecting with the stars, constant and eternal. And one generation slips into the next, the ground here to catch us when we fall.
Mickeline Picaro writes for the Morris Jumel Mansion. We Are Philipsi Indians by Mickeline Picaro. We are Philipsi Indians, words swayed gently on wind through family history over time, echoing along my oscillating adolescent inquisitive mind. Elder knowledge ringing in ear, propelling chronicles clear across decades of unrecorded histories, spoken words which swirl like vortex as neurons apprehensively capture the essence of their meaning. Wappinger, Lenape, Ramapo, Wicquaskek, Philipsi, Minsi, Munsi. These words tumbled about my brain. I hear knowledge is power, but what is knowledge without explanation? Simple motivation for musings are assumed. History speaks in forked tongue, causing words to crash on ears like marching band cymbals, jerking the veil of fabrications and heavy opinion upward to reveal its deprived truths. Frederick Philipsi inherits Indian woman with child and several Negroes, men plus women. Sale and purchase of enslaved people elegantly weaving his legacy like fine lace for heirs. Amassed heirlooms doth Mary Philipsi Morris acquire, with lofty mansion tethering to sprawling land, when fog is lifted and dew remains, faded for erasure like Philipsi Indian trails once traveled. Spirits of Ramapo Lenape ancestors entombed in timeline and stuck in history pages as final judgment of parchment, genocidal doom. We are alive with spirit of ancestors and teachings, heart. We are still here. Philipsi, Ramapo, Wicquaskek, Wappinger, Lenape, Minsi, Munsi Indians.
Hello, my name is Lisa Ventura, also known as Ruby G. The title of this poem is Elegy for Truths Disappeared from History Books. Part 1. Atop Manhattan's second highest peak sits a 1765 George Palladian summer residence exclusively designed for British air. A White House without much external flair, but with unmatched views of Harlem, of Hudson Harbor, a fortress for Colonel Roger and Mary Morris, the largest human dealers of their time. Legally conducting trafficking affairs, publicly quenching a thirst for arrogant glamour, by building fortunes with bludgeoned money. Currency claiming in God we trust, but greed only trusts the green hues on its Benjamins. Wealth only trusts its addiction to power, and thus tower over highly pigmented Americans. This game been rigged from the start. Affluence created the regimen. Hence, why law is always on the side of treasury. Lest we not offend our Pledge of Allegiance, but this is the origin of America's mysteries. Nightmares recycle themselves repetitiously, and superstitiously, privilege comes to colonize. Sacred ancestry, presently, forevermore, brown and black communities. The genesis of gentrification. Records proving we stand upon consecrated territory whose maiden name is Lenapehoking, 50 city blocks, wrenched from indigenous hands to satiate European business and pleasures, consisting of genocidal experimentations in the name of economical explorations. Who couldn't live prosperously, predator and preying their way through Algonquin-speaking nations? A country's foundation landmarked for its colonization efforts, but not for the land sacrificed by brute British hands. For 5 consecutive weeks, autumn of 1776, General George Washington and his team encamped in the second floor's octagonal room, plotting, utilizing said vantage point to this country's advantage. Part 2. In 1810, Stephen and Eliza Jumel purchased the residence and its surrounding acreages. Later, Madame Jumel, a self-educated businesswoman and widow twice over, made a name for herself by marrying immigrant, but rich, only to be scorned by New York's haughty elite. Unfortunately, her scheme didn't guarantee a seat with the likes of Regina George and her dweebs. Madam wasn't born into greed. Free as bald eagles on dollar bills, Eliza did not remarry and began to summer in Saratoga Springs, crossing paths with a free black family. A free family. A family. Hiring them all as staff and daringly claiming black offspring as her kin, but still treating them like property. Part 3. Ann Northup, mother, wife, cook, and not quite a widow, but a beloved husband and adoring father, had gone missing. Solomon Northup, farmer and gifted musician, was alienated from his relatives by way of trickery. Lured, kidnapped, and drugged into slavery. Hauled from Saratoga Springs to Washington, D.C., to Louisiana, and finally, New Orleans. For 12 years, a slave. Clearing cane to develop land that would never be entrusted to any of his kids, Margaret, Elizabeth, or Alonzo. For a decade, burden of proof was on him, and amendments per usual were not on his side. Typical narrative of Black America the Great. 4. The epilogue. Lest we never forget, there are 2 sides to every quarter, but underdogs always foot the bill, and so this reverence and spotlight is reserved for the lives that never mattered, for the flesh that endured as souls decayed, losing hope, strength, and perhaps the desire to remain alive, doing so anyway, while humbly serving its enemy. Thank you.
This is Ana Gaona Rocio Milagro, and I'm reading my poem titled Shipwreck Poem. Do not look for a ship in this poem. You will not find one, just the wreck. There is no mention of tumultuous sea journeys, or tempests, or Odysseus, or whales, or the stomach of whales. Maybe remnants. What torments the night to make it dive and rip sails will not be unveiled. Just the wreck. Because this is a shipwreck poem, you will find the ship destroyed, pieces repurposed, bassinets made of driftwood, blood, and salvaged hope. You will be enveloped in the stench of seaweed and vomit. You will find a people stuck, isolated, in an environment not suited for long life. You will fall asleep hungry, awaken hungry, spend the day with your stomach burning the rope of your tongue. You will be chased. You will run for your life, up crumbling mountains, down filthy stairwells, live in crumbling housing, panic often, have night terrors in broad daylight. Because so much of a shipwreck poem is to do with delirium, a common symptom of being cast away. You will find sanity in suicide, merciful. You will keep the dead as friends. Religion will be caught between fable, faith, and rage. You will hear screaming and crying. Every so often you will find a floating body face down in the river and keep drinking. You will build a raft of music, wax melded, broken beats mended, needle and threaded into beautiful collages. The world will listen in devotion, but ignore the cry for help. Let me tell you how little is written by born castaways. Because this is my shipwreck poem, a 1980s baby up the street of New York City where I grew up, you'd find a hollow library where my overdue mother resorted to fish out books from the garbage to nourish a young poet. An unwelcoming, gated, glowing white mansion built on the hill of the indigenous skulls on unprotected, looted Lenape land, now sealed with landmark protection and immune to the street avenues flooded by the war on drugs epidemic and the scattered puddles of strung out bodies in green glass bottles. Emptiness, the note. You will find people substitute anything for a boat. For those of us born of this wreckage, you will find our muscles sore. Spasms from unremembered storms, you'll find our arms like broken oars, make escape hard. How we try, only to redesign the same disaster because the wreck is all we know. Because this is a shipwreck poem, most important of all, you will find and face an ocean that swallows and hoards all that is meant for you.
We're going to start off with the first poem, and that's connected to the reason why we are here today. Ask me what freedom is made of. Stirring the pot, a whisper, gunpowder, Eliza Jumel's wishes, summer homes to own, buy, and sell. Maybe make your slaves create a table to make sure you are always at the head of it. My worries trapped in fickle payments, knowing that free never means sustainable. I sustain a rhythm so the food won't get clumped up before lunchtime. Hunched over with sweat, every bead dropped is a prayer for my babies, for Solomon, for the time taken from this body that I may never get back. I am backed up by paperwork, but still feel enslaved. I am a surveillance of daydreams, shown through all dark brown eyes and tattered skin. We don't belong in this story, yet we are the reasons for its success. What an oxymoron, even my ancestors chuckle. The notion of necessity and negligence, the blurring lines between cattle, cargo, and teeth, and lips, and mouths, and arms, and legs and feet and stomachs and hands, wrangle them back up to the pasture to work. Count them one by one until the sun sets and we are all enveloped by the night, where there are no favorites who circle around this mansion.
My name is Sandy Beck. My poem is They Called It Okehipke. They called it Okehipke. Wrapped in morning mist, we slip into Lake Jackson. Only purple gallinules, those brilliant rainbow birds, prick sunrise stillness, cackling, laughing, high-stepping across water lilies. An osprey, half flapping, half hovering 50 feet above our kayaks, plummets, smacking into the surface feet first, then rises on powerful strokes, spinning its trophy bass head first. A very slick trick. Snowy egrets and bright yellow slippers slink along the muddy shore, occasionally moonwalking to stir up breakfast, then perform a deep croaky song to impress close family and friends. A soft-shelled turtle pokes its long nose through duckweed. 2 Mississippi kites pirouette overhead, plucking dragonflies from the air that they swallow on the wing. We drift past gangly brown limpkins, their haunting cries competing with a distant barred owl, and one adorable young gator that rests its head on a floating log, 4 legs dangling in the current, until it slides beneath my boat and drifts out of sight. We've paddled this big lake for 34 years. Its wild lush always dazzled me, until 10 billion gallons of water slowly vaporized, then one day, gone. It's natural, I'm told, for this rain-fed lake dotted with sinkholes to vanish every 20 years or so. Thirsty plants drink some, and water oozes through its sandy bottom. Add a drought, a dip in groundwater, and a record heat wave, then whoosh, Porter Sink seriously sucks. So we hiked its muddy lake bed, past dead fish, past decomposing aquatic plants, past a frenzy of feasting gulls, to the disappearing water spectacle. Billions of gallons gushing into the Florida aquifer. Imagine the Colorado River raging with spring snowmelt and its explosive sound. That's it. A Spanish priest who visited our lake in 1716 described a prairie where hundreds of buffalo grazed. Yes, buffalo. The natives he met called it Okehipke, disappearing waters. Signs of climate change in Alaska are dramatic. Glaciers melt and retreat daily. In Florida, we have deadly heat waves, catastrophic hurricanes, and this lake that used to disappear every 20 years. But that's history. It's already Okehipke 3 times this year. Where we once launched our kayaks, a rare short-eared owl shows up to hunt rats and marsh rabbits. Thrilled to our toes, we watch it float, moth-like, above the tall grass and dry lake bed. No wild lush to paddle now, just a dazzling prairie of wildflowers and a sea of change.
Hi, my name is Penelope Cornez, and my poem is called The Lake with No Water. The lake with a sinkhole, Lake Jackson, a lake with no water, so many interesting birds, frog eggs scattered in piles, for some predator to eat, the scooped out bowls in the mud where fish once laid eggs, dead fish left to rot in other places, small waterfalls that we left over as if we were hobbits. We returned to school with our shoes, socks, and pants covered in mud.
Hi, my name is Jill Schrader, and my poem is called If I Was a Tree. If I was a tree, I'd feel each bright green leaf, marvel at my curving branches, send each root deep into the earth. If I was a tree, I'd be home to many. Frogs and lizards nestled in my roots, birds and owls would make their homes in my leafy canopy. If I was a tree, I'd feel the wind part my branches, let the water rush up my roots and into my trunk, if I was a tree.
Hi, my name is Tommy Daly, and this is my poem, A Beautiful Memory. Fields of grass where a lake once was. The wind whistled and swayed, yet no clouds in the sky. A small stream flows over limestone, seeing sunlight for the first time in decades. Mud up to our knees, fresh air down in our lungs. Yes, the lake was gone, but it would be back. We were sure.